When people ask why you collect, the answers usually sound similar. Investment, scarcity, condition, grails. Those things matter to a lot of people, especially within the YouTube collecting community. But they're not what comes to mind for me. You see, collecting has never really been about cardboard as much as it's about people and moments. A mom at a kitchen table trying to match a shade of blue. A pitcher who quietly did his job better than almost anyone else. A cousin at the end of a dead-end street who showed me what strength looks like. Today, I want to share 3 stories through cards in my collection and the people behind them. When I think about why I collect, I do not think about price guides. I think about my kitchen table growing up, the smell of paint, my mom in an apron covered in clay dust. When I was a kid, my mom was really into ceramics. She made yard decorations, Halloween pieces with lights inside, Christmas trees with frosted branches and colored bulbs. She was serious about it. And in 1981, she made something just for me. Now at the time, I was becoming a huge Dallas Cowboys fan, and one of my favorite players was Danny White. I watched nearly every game, and he was my quarterback. I would live and die with the team every week. And that Christmas, my mom made me a lamp. Now the base looked like a football field, and mounted on it was this hand-painted ceramic figure of Danny White. It didn't look like him at all, as you can see, with a big grin and cartoonish face. It didn't have his name on the back of the jersey, but you knew it was him because of the Cowboys uniform and the number 11. Now, a few weeks ago, I picked up this 1980 Topps Danny White card. This is a very special card for me because it takes me back to being 7 years old and sorting cards with my brother on the floor of our bedroom. But there's a bigger reason why I connect with this card. I'm convinced it was the main model she used for this statue. The number placement matches, the striping matches, even the shade of blue on the undershirt sleeves is almost exact. And then there is the giveaway. There's no star on the helmet. Any Cowboys fan notices that immediately. But in 1980, Topps did not have the licensing rights to include team logos. So the helmet on the card is plain silver. My mom did not forget the star. She painted what she saw on the card. She was not recreating a player from memory. She was recreating a trading card. Now this statue, it's been through a lot. In junior high, I carefully removed it from the lamp. The wiring and shade disappeared over time, but the figure stayed with me. It sat on a shelf in my room throughout high school. And years later, after I was married and had kids of my own, I was going through our basement and came across a box. And inside was that statue. The paint had aged a bit, but it was all still there. The same blue, the same missing star. Now, my oldest son was 2 at the time, so I decided to clean it up and put it in his room. He just turned 18 years old last week, and it's still there. Now, my mom and I have had a very difficult relationship at times, but that statue reminds me of how she showed love. She paid attention, she studied that card, she tried to get it right. And when I look at that 1980 Topps card, I do not see Danny White. I see her effort. Some cards feel like big additions. Others feel steady. When I added the 1933 Gaudy rookie card of Tommy Bridges, it felt steady. I'm building a display around players from the 1930s and early 40s, not just Hall of Famers, but players who quietly anchored their teams. Bridges was one of those players. He spent his entire career with the Tigers from 1930 to 1946. For much of the 30s, Detroit needed a win. He was the one taking the ball. He won over 20 games 3 years in a row from 1934 to 1936. But numbers, they only tell part of the story. One moment that captures Bridges came during the 1935 World Series against the Chicago Cubs. Late in the game, the Cubs had a chance to break through. Stan Hack led off with a triple, no outs, the tying run standing 90 feet away. But Bridges, he stayed calm. He struck out the next batter, then fielded a comebacker and held the runner at third, then got a fly ball to end the threat. Hack never scored. Detroit went on to win the game and the series, the first World Series championship in Tigers history, and Bridges threw complete games in both of those starts. But what I like most about him is his modesty. Even though he was the ace of a championship staff, he was never the loudest star on that team. Now, recently I watched a short interview with Bridges that really stayed with me. In 1960, he sat down with interviewer Clifford Evans during the Old Timers' Day at Yankee Stadium. Evans briefly mentioned Bridges and his great curveball, but the conversation quickly shifted to his famous teammates, Hall of Famers Hank Greenberg and Mickey Cochran. He talked about Cochran's leadership, and Bridges talked about Greenberg's bat, about how strong those Tiger teammates were together. But what struck me is he never tried to pull the spotlight back towards himself, but instead talked about his teammates. And that small moment told me a lot about who he was. And when I look at this 1933 Gaudy card, I see a player who carried his share of the load, stepped forward when his team needed him, and never seemed interested in making it about himself. And that is exactly the kind of presence I want in this display. When I was a kid, my world was about 10 blocks wide. At the end of those 10 blocks was a dead-end street where my cousin Jimmy lived. That street was our rink, our ball field, our gathering place. Jimmy was 5 years older than me, and he just loved sports. In his bedroom was the envy of the neighborhood, binders filled with complete sets from the 1970s into the early 80s. Baseball, basketball, football, hockey. I would love to sit on his bed and flip through the pages. He would order the complete sets out of sports magazines, which is what many collectors did at the time. It was the first time I had ever seen that many sets and learned about so many players as a young sports fan. Now, sadly, Jimmy had muscular dystrophy and he used a wheelchair to get around, but he was still very involved in all our games. He would referee and umpire and announce the games from the end of his driveway. He called the balls and strikes, he called the penalties, and we listened. Now, over the years, his condition worsened, and he eventually lost movement of his arms and was on a breathing machine. He would move his wheelchair with his chin. And later on, he ended up having to sell his prized card collection to help buy a van so he could get around. Now, sadly, Jimmy passed away in 2000, and I gave his eulogy telling just what he meant to me and how he taught me empathy. Now, a few months later, my aunt found a complete 1975 Topps hockey set in her basement. I brought it home to organize it for her, and I remember sitting on the couch in my living room going through the cards. The white borders, the bold name across the top, the colored puck in the bottom left corner, the combination of portraits and action photography. There was even that faint, musty basement smell on the set as I was putting it together. The kind that instantly took me back to winter afternoons playing hockey on our knees in that very basement. Now, I did not buy that set from my aunt. I returned it and she later sold it. It's something that I've regretted on several occasions. So what I did is years later, I started picking up cards from that same 1975 Topps hockey set, one at a time. And when I show these cards now, it's not about chasing value. It's about reconnecting with the time. With the sound of a tennis ball hitting a garage door, with Jimmy's voice calling out a goal, with a street that felt bigger than it was. And I also have something that was his Don Mattingly jersey and Yankees cap. They're reminders of Jimmy and what it meant to grow up knowing someone who got more out of what he was given than most healthy people ever do. And when I see him, I don't think about illness. I think about a kid in a wheelchair at the end of a driveway calling balls and strikes. And those things mean more than any card ever could. There are collectors who focus on numbers. There are collectors who focus on rarity. I focus on connection. You know, the older I get, the more I realize I'm not holding on to cardboard. I'm holding on to reminders. Of my mom trying to get the paint right, of a pitcher who handled pressure without showing it, and wasn't afraid to give the credit to others. Of a cousin who could not run or skate, but still led the game. And the cards help me tell those stories. That is why I collect. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.